Dreamworld Gold Coast is a theme park on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. Australia's largest theme park and heavily inspired by Disneyland, the park opened in 1981 and to this day continues to have a well-balanced and varied attraction lineup, both for the young and old. I've been visiting here since the late 90s myself, and I thought it would be fun to make a little overview guide, let you know what's there, what not to miss, and give you some cool hot tips along the way. Let's get started. Feel free to use the timestamps below to jump around the video, and if you enjoy it, please consider giving it a like and sharing it with your friends. Let's start with the rides. I'm going to group them into three sections: Thrill, Family, and for Kids. Thrill includes the larger thrill rides such as big roller coasters, where family has rides the whole family can enjoy, and for kids are the rides specifically intended for the little ones. The rides all have different height requirements, so I'll link some more info on those in the description if you want to check them out. Let's start with Thrill. Dreamworld has a solid selection, maybe not the best in Australia, but if thrills are your main reason for visiting, then you'll have a lot to choose from. The largest ride is the Giant Drop, and boy is it giant. It's the third tallest drop tower in the world, at a whopping 119 meters or 390 feet tall, with two sides, one facing inland and one facing the ocean. You don't want to miss this. Be warned though that it often goes down for safety if the weather is acting up, such as during high winds, so if the weather is scheduled to, act up later, be sure to ride it before it closes. Also, there's an easy way to see which sides of the ride are operating, as they often only operate one side at a time. If you look up at the top and see a catch car, it means that side currently isn't operating. And right next door we have the park's largest and most modern roller coaster, Steel Taipan, a Mark Blue Fire coaster with a unique triple launch and reverse spike for the model. This is a very fun ride, with lots of upside down moments or inversions, including a very intense but fun final inversion, which really throws you about. Very fun, and the back seat actually spins. Currently only one of two coasters in the world to have this option. It's a paid extra, but definitely worth it. Especially if you ride it by yourself, as you'll spin a lot more than if you ride with another person. Be warned though, it's very, very intense. Prices can vary for it, up and down, but as of recording it's $25 per person or $20 for annual pass holders. The other big coaster at the park is the Gold Coaster. This is a more old school coaster, a classic arrow from the 90s. There's a few very intense inversions, and this gets mixed reviews, with some considering it to be quite rough and bad, but I personally love it, and I think it has a lot of charm. Also, fun fact, this ride used to live at Luna Park Sydney back in the day. It's pretty cool having it at Dreamworld now. The park's newest ride at the time of recording is King Claw, a massive Intamin gyro swing, which replaced the older, smaller Claw. This thing is crazy. It's very fast and scary, giving some great moments of airtime. That feeling when you float out of your seat. It's super fun, but not for the faint-hearted. Even seasoned riders can get quite dizzy on it, so keep that in mind if you're susceptible to that. Maybe take a dizziness pill beforehand if you're worried. Now, the next two rides actually both fall into the Thrill and Family sections, as you actually choose the ride's intensity yourself. Serpent Slayer is a Zamperla air race flat ride with two modes. One is incredibly thrilling, fast and intense with lots of speed and upside down moments. And one is really tame and quite relaxing, almost like a swing at a local park. This ride has two queues, so make sure you're in the correct one before riding, or else you may be in for a bad time. Keep in mind that due to having two queues, the wait for this ride can be quite long, a lot longer than it would seem at first glance. Have a look at the queue to see how busy it is before riding, as it can be a lot busier than it looks. Now the other choose your own intensity ride, it's Tailspin, a Gerstlauer Skyflyer. This is a very popular ride which twirls you around up in the air. Unlike Serpent Slayer, you're actually in control of your intensity on the actual ride itself. If you want, you can manually spin the plane side to side by riding. And if you do this enough, you'll be able to go upside down. Spin enough and you can invert multiple times at crazy speeds. Or you can have a nice relaxing, chilled out version without any upside down moments. It's all up to you. Next, let's talk about family rides. There's a pretty good selection at Dreamworld. Let's start with my favourite ride at the park, Jungle Rush, located in the park's newest land, Rivertown. This is a Vekoma switchback coaster, the very first in the world. This type of coaster, it basically means it has a really unique layout that can send you on multiple circuits on the same ride. It can even repeat a circuit with the train going backwards and forwards. In the queue near the station, the line splits 3 ways: start forwards, start backwards, and single rider. This only affects which side you'll initially be facing on the first lap, as, again, the train will go both forwards and backwards during each ride. Single rider is intended for people by themselves to get on the ride slightly faster on average, but you can't pick which direction you initially face. Anyway, ride-wise this is very fun, very smooth and not too fast or intense, perfect for those still working their way up to the more thrilling rides. This is also fantastically themed, with easily the best themed queue line in Australia. Just look at that temple! Love it. Also in Rivertown, next door to Jungle Rush, is the Vintage Cars Murrissippi Motors. This is the newest iteration of the Dreamworld Vintage Cars, where you actually drive real petrol-powered cars around the circuit. The theming here is fantastic, with temple ruins, waterfalls, and an actual real plane. Another ride that the kids absolutely love, but honestly all ages can enjoy this equally. This is another ride that gets relatively long queues due to being a slow loader, so keep that in mind. Try to ride it at the beginning or the end of your day for the best results. This is also one of the only rides that you're allowed to film on, so feel free to get out your phone and capture some memories. Now, depending on when you're watching this, you may see a closed yellow roller coaster. This is Lost Mine Mayhem, previously Motor Coaster, which is getting a complete refurbishment and re-theme, and is due to open late 2027. This one is likely to be a family thrill too, so similar to Jungle Rush. One of the most popular rides in the park, and for good reason, is Sky Voyager. This is a flying theatre, basically a mix between a simulator and an IMAX-style screen, which simulates you flying. The usual film takes you around Australia, but sometimes they also show other films at different times on the same day. There's a board by the entrance showing which films will be playing and their times, so keep this in mind so you don't miss out on a particular film. This is also one of the only indoor rides at the park, so perfect for those hot or wet days. It can get very long queues though. You know, if you see the queue outside, there's a good chance it will have over an hour's wait. I'll go into the best time to ride attractions later, as the time of day can really affect the queue. Next door to Sky Voyager is another ride which is quickly growing to be iconic, the Dreamworld Flyer, a classic carnival swing ride that looks fantastic. It even has water fountains and classical music playing in the background. Unless it's windy, you don't get too wet, so don't worry about that. This looks even better at night, and it's one of the only 2 attractions to be available to ride during the weekly Dreamworld night markets. More on that later too. The other ride you can ride during the night markets is the Deep Sea Dodgems. This is your typical bumper car or dodgem ride, located indoors and themed to under the sea. Pretty cool. A short walk away from the Dodgems is Shockwave, a Zamperla disco ride. You sit on a large, spinning disc which sends you back and forward across the track. This is a perfect family thrill ride that kind of sits in the middle of the thrill scale, I'd say. Now, the ultimate family ride is the Dreamworld Express Train, which basically anyone can ride and enjoy. This does a loop around most of the park with 2 stops, one near the entrance to the park and one at the very back in the wild animal area. A very good option if you want to get around while giving your feet a rest. Keep in mind though, it's a very slow loader, so you may be standing in the queue for quite a while. Luckily, the train's ETA is listed on the screens in the queue, so be sure to check that out. There's also a carriage at the very back of the train for larger possessions like prams, so keep that in mind if you're, carrying a lot of items. Now, the last ride group is for kids. Rides almost all intended for the kiddos, not too thrilling and accessible enough for many young riders, with them mostly being found in the Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland area. The rides all have varying height requirements, so be sure to measure your height at the entrance to see which rides you'll be able to get on. Let's start with the coasters. We have Kenny's Forest Flyer. This is a perfect coaster for those wary of coasters, as it's very slow with very little intensity. A perfect first coaster. Across from it is yet another coaster, the Big Red Boat, themed to the Wiggles. This is another coaster which is great for the little ones. It does 3 laps around the short circuit. I personally prefer this one to Kenny's. Other rides and attractions in the area include the Big Red Planes, a little spinning plane ride also themed to the Wiggles. There's also the Bananas in Pajamas Carousel or merry-go-round, the Play School Wheel, a tiny Ferris wheel, and the Humpty Go Round, a Zamperla kite flyer where you spin around on your belly. Now, what's the best way to do the rides? Well, you can line up and queue, of course. Depending on the crowd level, sometimes this will be quick and sometimes unbearably slow. If you want to get guaranteed rides, the park do offer a paid fast pass. These significantly shorten your wait times. There's different options. One gives you up to 5 rides, and there's also an unlimited ride pass. The latter is a great option if you're heavy into rides, especially if the park is packed. There's another way to lessen the time you queue. It's more of a general theme park rule of thumb, but if you get to the park at opening, head to the back of the park first and work your way forwards, as most guests will immediately gravitate to the rides closest to the entrance. In this case at Dreamworld, don't do rides like Sky Voyager, Steel Taipan or King Claw first, as you don't want to wait in those queues right after opening because they'll be busy. If you head to the rides at the back of the park like Giant Drop or Jungle Rush first, you should have a much easier time with shorter queues compared to the other rides. When you return to the entrance rides later, they should have much more reasonable queues as the visitors disperse across the park. Now, this is another general park tip, but yes, sometimes rides can go down throughout the day and close due to factors like technical errors, weather delays, and other factors. Sometimes you'll have to wait longer in the queue while they sort out these issues. And sometimes you'll have to completely empty the queue, but don't worry, these events are relatively rare, but they can happen, and in most instances the rides will reopen shortly afterwards, so please try to be patient and understanding, as these events are completely normal and completely safe, and evident of a park operating safely, not the reverse, which I can understand a lot of people get the impression of. If it looks like a ride will, reopen shortly, it does pay to wait around outside, and if you're lucky, you may be able to get straight back on before the line reforms. Similarly, you're also not allowed loose items on most rides, and this is all for safety, as trust me, there's a big chance you will lose your items while riding, which can cause injuries or even cause the ride to close like I mentioned earlier, so please don't bring them on the ride. Leave them with a non-rider, or in the free ride storage boxes you can find in the station for most rides. Your phone will appreciate not being lost. Now, that's all the rides, but there's definitely a lot more attractions to see and do at the park, like the splash pad, which is great for those warmer days, called Seabed Splash. This is super popular with the kids, giving them an opportunity to get wet and cool down from the heat, while also having fun. There's even an animatronic pirate octopus who squirts water at you. Another kid-friendly attraction is Belinda's Treehouse. This is a 2-level playground filled with lots of foam balls, which you can place in air cannons to shoot them. This is often very popular and the kids seem to love it. Next door to that is the Bananas in Pajamas Fun Maze, a cute mini outdoor maze for the kiddos to run around in. There's also the Gamesite Arcade, home to various arcade games, both your usual video games as well as other games such as claw machines, and those ones that give you tickets you can exchange for prizes. The park is also part zoo, having multiple animal exhibits. There's 2 main animal areas, Wild, home to native Australian animals, and the world-famous Tiger Island, home to multiple endangered big cats who act as great ambassadors for their species. There's 3 exhibits in Tiger Island. One has a cool little cave you can go into to see the tigers up close, and one even has an elevated walkway which actually goes out of the exhibit, which the tigers love to use. It's so cool seeing them up close like that. The main exhibit is the classic Tiger Island. This is a large exhibit with its own arena-style sitting area, and here is where they host the Keeper Talk, held every day at 12:30, where a keeper will often feed the tiger, talk about conservation, and answer your questions. There's a lot of seats here, so you shouldn't have trouble getting a spot if you arrive early. The other animal area is Wild, home to many native Australian animals, located in the back of the park. The Aussie critters you can see include koalas, kangaroos, emus, dingoes, wombats, Tasmanian devils, and many more. Can't forget about the crocodiles. Dreamworld has both the smaller freshwater crocs as well as the much larger saltwater crocs, including the absolutely massive Goliath. There's a saltwater crocodile presentation here every day at 1:30, and if you're lucky you may see them get fed, as they don't get fed every day. And yes, they are real. I often hear visitors generally thinking that these are, fake models, but no, they're real. They're just conserving energy as reptiles do. A good tip I have for seeing animals is the actual time of day. Most of the animals will be more active at the beginning and end of the day, so if you want to, maybe see a koala actually awake and not sleeping, consider visiting this section from, around 4 PM onwards, or as soon as you get to the park. Many international visitors will especially be interested in the kangaroos and koalas. There's a daily keeper talk for the koalas at 12:15, and you can also get your photo with a koala, either patting it or actually giving it a cuddle, which is definitely an iconic and magical experience. The wild area also has 2 nocturnal houses, Midnight Trail and the Bilby Discovery Centre. Here you can listen to a Bilby keeper talk daily at 12:45. Both animal sections have various upcharge wildlife experiences, where you can get up close and personal with the animals. Ever wanted to feed a tiger or a crocodile? Well, here's your chance. If you want to secure your spot, it's best to book ahead on the website. These all help support Dreamworld's Wildlife Foundation, which plays a big role in conservation around the world and closer to home. There's also a mini indoor attraction here called Our Country. It's an immersive audio-visual movie experience, showcasing many natural sights around Australia. The show runs continuously, so you don't need to queue or arrive at a certain time. You can just walk right in and enjoy as much or as little as you want. Be warned though, it can get very loud in there, especially during the thunderstorm sequences. Dreamworld actually kept this in mind, as they offer a quieter version of the show during the last hour of the park's operation, which is pretty darn clever. So keep this in mind if you have audio-sensory issues. Let's next get into the entertainment offerings at the park. There's usually a few live shows on each day. There's one with the Wiggles in the morning, followed by shows featuring the park's mascots Kenny and Belinda. Speaking of characters, they often pop out for meet and greets throughout the day, including Kenny, Belinda, Dorothy, Wags, the Bananas in Pajamas, and much more. Showtimes can be found on the park's website or their app, which I'll go into more later. The park hosts a lot of events throughout the year, such as Winterfest, Happy Halloween, Christmas in July, the Dreamworld Food Festival, and the Dreamworld Country Fair. They offer unique activities and offerings which are worth checking out if you happen to be visiting while one is on. Some are special night events and give a rare opportunity to visit the park at night, but on the other hand, these night events are usually separate paid events, whereas the daytime ones are usually included with your entry. Annual pass members can get one included ticket to the night events though, so keep this in mind, it does come in handy. There's also frequently mini events like the Wars World Takeover, which celebrated the NRL team. Let's talk about food. Food-wise, there's a few options at the park, most near the entrance behind the Dreamworld flyer. There's your usual fast food like burgers and pizza, as well as your healthier options like sandwiches and wraps. The park has one coffee shop which serves your usual hot and cold beverages, as well as some cabinet food. And there's also an ice creamery which serves delicious but unhealthy desserts. And if you want something that won't melt as fast, there's a sweet shop next door. The busiest eatery by far is Food Central, the main fast food one. While this can get big queues, it doesn't take that long relatively, and there's a couple of other ordering options like the new automatic kiosks. Like the ones you can usually find at McDonald's. And you can also order online if you scan the QR code on the table. Definitely try these out if the queue seems pretty long, which it can often do. Food prices vary and can change, but as of recording, expect to pay $20 to $30 per adult on average, and around $15 to $20 for kids. The food is often a bit cheaper at the coffee shop, which is usually quieter and quicker too. So if you want something fast, keep that in mind. The park has one sit-down restaurant called Jane's Rivertown Restaurant located in Rivertown. You likely won't need a reservation, just walk on in. I highly recommend this one as it's fantastically themed, filled with animatronics, artifacts, and has a fantastic vibe with a changing menu. Again, around $20 to $30 per adult. Speaking of food, if you're a local or visit the park multiple times a year, I do recommend the annual dining pass. This gives you one meal and one snack per person at no extra cost each day of the year. It basically pays itself after 3 to 4 visits, and this is a fantastic option. Getting a normal annual pass to the park also gives you 10% off food, drinks, and merchandise. You just scan your pass when you pay and you're good to go. Speaking of merchandise, let's talk about shops. I know a lot of you love your souvenirs, and the park does have a lot of items on offer, ranging from clothing, toys, little souvenirs, larger souvenirs, and much more. Some of the items are pretty bad quality, where some others are pretty good. You can find pretty much everything in the Dreamworld Emporium shop at the exit, but there's other specialty shops too, like the Ferry shop, the aforementioned Sweet shop, the Rivertown Emporium, and the Tiger Island Bazaar. There's items pretty much catering to any budget. There's also a separate official LEGO store right at the park exit, which you have to walk through to leave the park. But this one's unique as you can also visit this particular shop without entering the park if you so wish. A cool unique option that Dreamworld offers is the Dreamworld Night Market. Every Friday and Saturday night, the park remains open and hosts a lot of independent food trucks, music, and other events and entertainment. Entry to this is free if you're already in the park, otherwise it's $2 a person. The only rides open are the Dreamworld Flyer and Deep Sea Dodgems, which become pay to ride, $10 a ride or $15 for a 2-attraction bundle. Annual pass holders can continue riding these at no extra cost though. Now let's talk about some other tips and tricks that don't really fall into the other categories, such as tickets, the best time to visit, parking, and much more. So park hours are usually between 10 AM to 5 PM, sometimes earlier or later depending on the time of year. The entrance to rides, depending on the wait time, will actually close slightly before closing time, so try to get on a ride maybe half an hour or so beforehand to secure your ride on it. For example, if the park's going to close at 5 PM, try to get your last ride around 4 o'clock to secure it. So where do you buy tickets? Well, the best place is Dreamworld's website. They have a few deals and lots of offers throughout the year, but if you must, you can also do it at the gate on the day. From what I've seen, it's not really cheaper or easier on external sites like Klook. Some offers on Dreamworld's site also gives you value if you want to also visit Whitewater World next door, or the Sky Point observation deck in Surfers Paradise. I won't be going into those attractions in this video, but keep that in mind if they also seem appealing for your visit. And yeah, the park frequently do a lot of deals throughout the year for different types of passes, so be sure to keep an eye out. A good time from the top of my head for these type of deals is during the end of fiscal year sale in June. So when's a good time to actually visit the park? Well, it's open all year and doesn't have a closed season. The quietest off-peak times are usually right after the school holidays, when the school terms resume. For example, I'd say February, August or October, times like that. The busiest times are during holidays and breaks, such as December, January, June, and September. This is a double-edged sword though, as being an annual park, the park often has to close their rides throughout the year for a few weeks at a time to do annual maintenance, which they usually align during the quieter times. For example, if you visit outside of a major holiday or break, it's extremely likely at least one of the major rides will be closed. So, do you visit when it's busy and have access to all the rides, or visit when it's quieter but have less rides to choose from? That's up to you. You can see which rides will be closed on the park's website beforehand in the maintenance section. It usually gets updated a month or two before the ride is due to be closed. And yes, on average, weekdays are usually quieter than weekends. What about weather? Well, the Gold Coast is pretty nice any time of the year. Summers aren't awful here, but they can get quite hot and humid, with temperatures usually in the late 20s or early 30s, in Celsius of course, while in winter it goes down to around the early 20s. Summer usually has a higher chance of rain, as well as frequent storms, which usually happen in the afternoon. Most rides in the park will temporarily close for safety reasons when a storm is close, so keep this in mind if one is scheduled to arrive later that day. What about parking? Well, it's free! There's also a bus stop right outside the park, where you can catch a ride both in or out of the park, with buses frequently making a stop. These also go to the nearby train stations, which is great for those without their own transport. For a guide on how to take the bus to the park from the local train stations, there's a cool video here from Jack's Journeys who made a video checking it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Have kids? Well, the park has a really good parents' room, located right in Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland. Here you have private bathrooms, a shower, microwaves, private rooms for child feeding, and a little play area filled with toys and books. A nice quiet and cool spot to relax. Similarly, the park has a cool little spot called the Calming Cottage. You have to get a code from the first aid next door to enter, but this is great if you're visiting with someone who has stimulatory issues and needs a break from the hustle and bustle. This has 2 dark and very quiet rooms with some stimulatory items, which is something you don't see often at parks. While it's next door to the Steel Taipan roller coaster, you can barely hear it from inside, so don't worry too much about that. The park also offers other utilities too, such as wheelchair rentals, stroller rentals, wagon rentals and more, as well as lockers which can be found to the left of the park entrance. Want to save on drinks? Well, the park has a few water fountains scattered around the park, and I definitely recommend bringing a water bottle with you so you can refill throughout the day and keep hydrated. What about bathrooms or lavatories or washrooms, whatever you call it? There's a few toilets around the park, and sadly they aren't the greatest at Dreamworld. They're often small, a bit run down looking and smelly, but they're ultimately functional. The best is definitely the one in Jane's Rivertown restaurant, which you can use if the restaurant is open, just walk on in. Don't tell anyone. And there's also a good toilet in Tiger Island, which, while small, is greatly themed and plays some cracking tunes. Want to take home memories? There's various photo passes, which include on-ride photos on select rides, as well as roaming photographer photos, and photos from the character meet and greets. I've personally never taken advantage of this myself, but I believe you can simply scan your pass whenever you get a photo, and it gets saved to your account, which you make beforehand online. I believe you can also make an account at the Emporium's photography section, which also sells items like SD cards and power banks. Like most parks, Dreamworld does have an app. At the time of recording, it's fairly new, but on it you can easily see the park map, as well as info on the rides, show times, and other details. Unlike other parks though, you cannot see the ride wait times on there. There we have it! This was my first ever guide like this, and I'll be really interested in hearing any feedback that you have. What did you like? What didn't you like? I do plan on doing more like this, including guides for Warner Bros. Movie World and SeaWorld Gold Coast, which may or may not already be uploaded depending on when you watch this. If they are, please check them out. Anyway, if you're visiting Dreamworld soon, have a fantastic time, I truly mean that. I'd love to hear about your visit in the comments below, especially if this video helped you out a bit. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribing to the channel for more theme park videos. Thanks again, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Over and out!